This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 245. Gary Turner on fighting for hypnosis.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
I think hypnosis is awesome. What, do you want to fight about it? All right, good. Let's jump directly into this week's content. This is a conversation that I've been wanting to capture for quite honestly about a year since first interacting with Gary Turner over at the UK Hypnosis Conference when I attended back in 2018. And just the scheduling didn't quite work out for me, so I wasn't able to go in 2019. But if you saw any of the reports online, it was a phenomenal convention, this time put on by Adam Eason, former guest of the program, episode number 200. And Gary was someone who I interacted with a bit online, a little bit in person, and just seeing some of the commentary that he does, that you're going to hear this amazing dialogue about moving from fighting sports to working with people for anxiety issues and such, and just this passion for looking at the work and realizing, yes, we can all do better at what we do. Now, if you've been on to some of the forums that are online, Gary has developed a bit of a reputation for ruffling feathers, I think in the most appropriate way, which is that there's a lot of dogma. There's a lot of old information within our community that we are just repeating because that's what we were told. And, well, folks, it's time we start to update some of that information, which to even look at the simplicity of the definition of hypnosis that Gary actually provides, which I'll read it here. Hypnosis is when your imagination is guided so that it becomes your reality. So we talk quite a bit in detail about Hebb's law in this dialogue, the whole neurons that fire together, wire together. You know, the experience as James Hazelrig defines hypnosis. Of hypnosis is the art of creating real results from imaginary experiences, but to sort of set aside the expectations that we have to do a hypnotic induction, to set aside the idea that there is a conscious or even an unconscious mind, but instead to look at the fact that we are conditioning a response to create a new automatic reaction, which these are all themes that I don't think any of us would argue. Just the challenge becomes is that, well, that's what I was told. That's what's in my book. Future guest on the program. I need to have her on here sometime soon because it's been too long that I've not had her on. Shelley Stockwell-Nicholas, that she has a great story that I'm sure she'll tell when she's on here of reprinting one of her books because, as she put it, I don't believe the stuff that I put in there anymore. The same as some of you have my training course, Hypnotize with Conviction, that I think I first put that out in like 2013, 2014, but then I took it off the market because I didn't do it that way anymore and eventually relaunched it and put it out there the way that I do it now. So, which, by the way, for listening to the intro, if you go over to the show notes for this episode, we'll make that available. Also, I encourage you, head over to garyturner.co.uk. Plus, we're going to link to some other websites and resources to look at. I've actually got, as we'll talk about, Gary has a therapy protocol that he's got available for purchase online. It's an outstanding course and using information from that actually in some of my sessions to this day. So to look at this mindset of fighting for hypnosis. Yes, we talk about working with athletes, working with fighting athletes, but really you're going to hear a clear passion in the work that he does, plus the outstanding story of his two dogs with non-accredited degrees, by the way, but we'll set that aside. But the story of really creating an environment for change. So that's what you've got to look forward to inside of this conversation that you're about to listen to. I'd throw a little nuance out there too, which I got a great compliment from Gary last year when he attended the presentation that I did at the UK conference, where basically I dropped the phrase, automate everything, which to look at how everything becomes a bit of a system, even if it's as simple as when I'm done recording this episode, the way it's going to go off to Dropbox, the way that it's going to be taken care of by the editors, the system of how we're going to create the graphic image and the whole promotion of it. You know, we've got a bit of an automated system to consistently put this information out there. The same as a client reaches out to me and I handle that phone call in a rather consistently replicatable, similar way. Even down to, I need a haircut, you know? And the way that I go to the app for haircuttery.com because I'm that fancy, and only Lee knows how to cut my hair so it's actually even. That's an issue when it all points straight up, even in the personal life. So Gary had brought that up last year, and also when we wrapped up the recording, he mentioned that he's been using that as the theme, and this is one of those main principles that I share inside of Hypnotic Business Systems. But rather than just tell you what to do, instead, inside of there, I'm showing you step by step how I've created these systems for my business, where you can get the all-access pass of my Hypnosis business training library. And simply put, by making use of just a few of the dozen or so action plans, you can make back that investment and help you to grow a thriving hypnotic business without having to reinvent the wheel. So check that out. Get the all-access pass now over at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. We're going to link in the show notes once again to Gary's website. And again, I highly recommend getting his therapy protocol. It's phenomenal, well thought out information, which really streamlines a lot of the work that we do in an easy to access way. Great guy. You're going to love meeting him. Here we go. Let's jump directly in. This is episode number 245, Gary Turner on Fighting for Hypnosis. So Gary, just to kind of kick things off right, for those that don't yet know you, how would you best introduce yourself?
I would introduce myself as a bully's worst nightmare. I'm a geek who can fight. I've got a great background as a professional fighter, a successful career, took me around the world, quite nice and that was as well. But I'm also a geek. I constantly study, I've gone back to do a doctorate, and I look to apply my learnings with my clients. So yeah, I'm a bully's worst nightmare, but it's okay, I've got my clients back.
Using those powers for good, right?
Oh, exactly, yeah, definitely,
exactly.
Most definitely.
So what's the doctorate that you're going after?
Okay, well, I've gone for a doctorate, which is a multidisciplinary one, which covers all the areas of my work. So the working title is The Behavioral Effects of Head Impacts in Fight Sport Athletes. So basically I'm covering behavior, cognition, perception change, how all mentation is biological. So every thought we have has a biological basis and affects the body, and the feedback affects the mind. So I've got my hypnotherapy and hypnosis side nicely covered with the behavioral side. And then I've got head impacts, which covers my fight sports and the fight sport athletes. And it also shows the portent of what is to come for my poor brain, which should be mush by now with the amount of hits that I've had over the years.
Nice. So then what is it that you spend most of your time? Well, let's rewind it back. What was that first introduction into hypnosis specifically for you?
The first introduction to hypnosis was, well, it's from my fight career. I used to beat people using applied psychology. My trainers would always say, Gary, I don't know how you just managed to do what you've just done. And we worked out it's because I'd break my opponent psychologically. So I was always applying psychology and started then to study much, much more. I did a 2-day hypnosis practitioner course and realized that very quickly by questioning what I was taught, it didn't teach me anything about actual hypnosis. By the rest of the week, I'd completed the master course and realized that there was a lot lacking in this, and set off on a journey of discovery. I was fortunately working with the British Army a lot at the time. I'm a civilian, but because of my fight sports, I used the Army School of Physical Training, which is around the corner from me, and they asked me to do various bits of work for them. When they came to, where's your invoices? I'm like, what invoices? This is me paying back for abusing your facilities. So they chucked me on a load of their psych courses, which was really of benefit. So I've got a lot of training through the Army, which is really helping my clients. And it wasn't just what I was being taught, it was the people who were on the courses as well, like the interrogation and counter-interrogation specialist. There's lots of skills that I picked up along the way, separate to the course. So from that humble beginnings, I just kept on studying, realized that no one model of hypnosis was working, sought out some mentors, and they were the ones who didn't mind being questioned, also who didn't mind updating their knowledge when it was when they knew more. So I found Anthony Jacquin, I found James Tripp, various people like that who got me going on what is hypnosis and how do we actually apply it. Anthony Jacquin back then was very much into the classical models of hypnosis, whereas James Tripp was hypnosis without trance, making me realize that you didn't need an induction to create what we were doing. So obviously they've both kind of morphed together a little bit more as time has gone on. And they're both leading experts in our field. I then ended up following the works of people like Andrew T. Austin and Nick Kemp, where I learned how to apply it to therapy. So I would suggest that quite possibly my underpinnings in hypnosis itself would come via the learnings and the mentorship from James Tripp and Anthony Jacquin. And then my approach to therapy was shaped by the mindset given to me by Andy Austin and Nick Kemp. And it's just continued to question and develop all the way through my career over the last 15 years, where I question what I'm asked and go off and study and see if they're right. I look to prove them wrong.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that, we find ourselves in an interesting sort of renaissance in the profession where information has never been easier for someone to obtain, which, before we jumped onto this recording, I was telling you some of the numbers that this podcast gets and the fact that it goes around the world. Though because of that, this mindset of repeating just simply what we were trained, repeating what the book that was written 50, 60 years ago just doesn't quite hold up. So this intention where some would get frustrated or even offended that now, okay, let's start to change some of these models. You brought up something great there a little moment ago, which I want to go back to. Yeah. About psychologically breaking down your opponent, which in some models of hypnosis, they talk about either overload or fatigue the nervous system. And well, it's definitely a bit of overload if we wanted to follow that model. Not that I think I have a specific need for it yet, but how was it in that fighting environment that you were doing that psychological breakdown?
Oh, so many layers. There were so many layers to it. Perhaps I'll give an example to give an idea. I was fighting at a massive show in the UK, and I was fighting a Brazilian called Edson Drago. He just knocked out the UK #1 super heavyweight in 10 seconds. I was his next opponent. I used to fight super heavyweight, but I was naturally sort of super cruiserweight weight. So the money back then used to be in the supers. So I used to fight super heavyweight. Why not? I could. And we looked at the videos of Edson and we realized that he was bigger, he was stronger, his striking was as good as mine, but he was heavier, his grappling was as good as mine, but he was heavier and stronger, his takedowns, basically he had the edge on me in every single area. So we're like, okay, we've got to find another angle here. And then we saw it. Before every fight, he would lean forward and sort of tap his forehead onto the other person, basically headbutting his opponent, but in such a way that he wouldn't get too much criticised to it, like I'm the big man. And he'd do it when they'd go to touch gloves. So we had it. We started laughing and thought, what can we do? Now, my fighter nickname used to be Smiler, because I used to enjoy my sport, and it wasn't a case of me smiling when I got hit to show I wasn't hurt. Hey, when I got hit, I was hurt. I just smiled because I enjoyed fighting. It was great fun. So this is what we did. We had big press meets. It was on Eurosport at the time, Sky Sports, and we did the weigh-in. And as we're squaring off for the photographs, he started moving in to sort of start doing the little nuts to my head to show he's the big man and I'm the little one. So my hand went back, something was passed to it, and then suddenly I passed it to him. Suddenly the room was wetting themselves laughing. I'd given him a box of chocolates. The pattern interrupt was immense. He had no idea what to do. The room was laughing. I was roaring with laughter. I'll show you a pic after this of the aftermath of it. He's trying to look all hard and I'm still wetting myself laughing in the background. He just didn't know what to do. So I'd already started to show that it doesn't matter what he is, I'm not going to be intimidated by him. In fact, I'm going to find it funny. So when we went out to fight, so we had a good 8,000-9,000 in the audience, really big show live on TV, all the pressure of all that. And as we go to touch gloves, I lean away and hold my hands out as far as I could, laughing. And he's like touching my gloves, looking all confused, reinforcing the pattern interrupt. But then the fight got underway, and yeah, he was better than me in every respect. So what I did, I just constantly used my right leg to constantly kick 1 point on his left thigh, repeatedly. I got in trouble a few times. At one time, he was on top of me, delivering ground and pound, but I kept my Smiler psychological destruction mode on, and I blocked one of his punches with me on my back and him on top, raining down the punch. Managed to block one, and you've got me kind of going, aha, with a smile as I do so. and with then the confused look on his face. And basically, he doesn't come out for the third round, completely and utterly broken physically because he couldn't walk on his leg, mentally, and actually he didn't fight again.
Oh, wow.
He's one of several people whose careers I've ended following such a psychological breakdown. In fact, I fought a guy in the UK called Kevin Morton. I fought him over 12 rounds, full contact kickboxing, so kicks above the waist, kickboxing, full contact. And I lost the fight. I lost on points. He contacted me on Facebook about 3 years ago, and this fight was back in 93, 94. He said, Gary, I was broken for about 10 years after our fight, and I won. So it shows the application of psychology to sports. And yeah, you can deconstruct your opponents. It's fun.
I love that. And just by the way, for the audience out there, probably in a good 10, 15 minutes time, we'll be getting heavily into what actually is hypnosis and how do we define it and how do we communicate it. So remember what Gary can do before we get into that.
I have a patented overhand right induction, guaranteed to put people to sleep.
Nice, nice. So I want to translate that directly to, let's call it out. Someone is coming into the space to actually work with you. And I imagine, correct me on this, you're not just using hypnosis as a formal tool. It's a component of an entire bigger system when someone's reaching out to you for change, correct?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So to branch off of that, though, the question would be, how is it that you're looking to interrupt that cycle of, where sometimes the whole podcast session that came out like 2 weeks ago was just sort of unraveling the reality that people present as secondary gain, that very often it's just an excuse rather than being flexible. That's the session from like 2 weeks ago with Jess Marion talking about that. But, someone's coming in and let's say that they've kind of unconsciously become conditioned that here's another thing that probably won't work. So how are you looking to break down that expectation to now set the stage for whatever you're about to do to actually become effective?
Yeah, to break that down is quite good fun. What I do is I give a lot of knowledge. My whole approach to therapy is for a client not to need me, not to need me ever again, and have the knowledge that no one that they love will ever need me ever again as well. Kind of makes myself redundant, but it gets results, and results bring the clients in, because I get referred on and on and on. So I'm looking to educate my client that nothing that we do is magical. Change is absolutely really simple. And I leave them with the thought that all a hypnotherapist does, in fact, all forms of psychotherapy, ultimately, all we do is help people to imagine stuff differently. It is that straightforward. So that's the overall aim. Client efficiency where they can just imagine stuff differently quite nicely and are self-empowered to do that as well. They don't need me then. So during the session, I need to create the change and let them know what we're doing and educate them on how we're doing it during the process as well. So they're fully informed at every step of the way. To break that down at the start, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. 5 elements to successful therapy. There's the therapeutic relationship, how well we can work together. We got the increase of placebo, the power of positive belief, massive efficiency there. Removal of nocebo, the power of negative beliefs. We've got to allow for natural reversion. Hey, some stuff just gets better on its own, but I'll take credit for that. Thank you very much. And then we've got the true magic of sessions, which is the application of Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So I've got to deliver all of that, and it starts when someone comes in. I work from home because it's a real place, not a clinical therapy studio. I've got 2 therapy dogs. I've got Dr. Max Husky and Harley Husky, PhD. Yep, I've got a couple of Siberian Huskies who are therapy dogs.
Which, again, I've already gotten onto on the internet because I don't believe those are accredited, but we'll let those go.
Yeah, that's a nice in-joke about the amount of fake doctorates on the website. Yeah. I think these 2 bought it from the some higher University of California for $49, I think. But I can't speak that much Russian, and so they haven't quite explained it to me yet. Yeah, so when the clients come through, the first thing I say is, "Oh, are you afraid of dogs? Are you okay with dogs?" Most of them are. If not, within 10 minutes they are anyway. I'm a hypnotherapist. We'll get rid of that fear of dogs. But Max and Harley are the icebreaker. They make people feel welcome. I start to explain canine behavior so they can understand the dogs and what they're doing and why they respond in that way. And that gets us talking right from the word go, meaning that the therapeutic relationship is already initiated and underway. What I often do if there's a resistant client that's, that's just another thing that's not going to work, is give them some magic really, really quickly. And I'm probably the world's worst mentalist. But even I can create some quick effects just to manipulate their minds and do some predictions within, 30 seconds or a minute, let them know that I can do what I say I can do on the tin just by manipulating their minds. And say, look, if I can manipulate your mind like this, imagine what we can do throughout the rest of the session.
Yeah,
which
I like that as I like that as that through line, because there's some that, and I honestly, I scrubbed the internet years ago because I did have a background of being the magician and then getting into mentalism, and it just did not fit within my style, and I just kind of lost the interest in it because, hey, this hypno stuff is awesome too, if not more so, as I've been doing just that, nothing else. But for me, it was that thought that, here's something that's fake. But then again, it's the same way that I would present, the suggestibility test nowadays, which I completely debunk. It's not because of the magic of my words that the fingers touched. It's the fact that, I got you into the right position where that thing can naturally occur. And that's exactly like what we're about to do in this hypnosis.
You got it. In fact, I use a lot of so-called suggestibility tests to actually remove the magic from hypnosis.
Nice.
I literally show them how we can create it. For example, I might create some idiomotor responses, get some finger signals set up, then explain that all I did was piggyback on the back of natural facilitations, the natural motor neuron twitches that happen. I might, especially with a sportsman, I might push their hand into the table, get them to try and lift it as they try and push it down at the same time, locking their mind around that idea. The motor cortex can only hold one physical movement with one body part in mind at once. So it can't lift and push at the same time. So it sticks. So I'll stick their hand to the table really, really quickly, and then I'll explain how I've done it. Not only that, I'll then explain how they're believing that it was me that did it, but in reality, it was just this. So I literally remove all the magic, all the woo, all the wow, you're going to lift the lid and load it in from hypnosis to explain that I'm working mechanically, efficiently, and let them know that they are under this biopsychosocial, cultural, economic set of influences, giving their senses overload and directing their overall behavior. So they're better placed to move through reality with the right imagined version of it.
Nice, which I like that frame of, here's how you're already doing it. Here's how, I'm not really the one making it happen. In my own head, this is probably never voiced to a client, but, to compare two different magicians, yes, there's a David Copperfield with music and there's posing and it's kind of fitting into the stereotype of what we'd expect of the magician. But then again, there's folks like Penn and Teller, which their line for years is that we're just a couple of guys who have learned how to do some pretty cool things. So from
never was it the Penn Jillette says, I've got a mutual friend with Penn Jillette, Ray Cronies. There's the reason why Penn Jillette is now skinny. And when Ray helped Penn lose all the weight, he's got a lovely book called Presto, How I Made 150 Pounds Disappear. And then the first thing he says is, never take diet advice from a juggler. It's brilliant. Love those guys.
Yeah. So this kind of brings us to the topic then of actually defining hypnosis and actually how it is that we should update our language of how we talk about it, which I will give you a preview of where I think we're about to go with this, that I agree with you in terms of, the terms we need to start to phase out. But at the same time, I've redefined them. So we're basically going to end up saying the same stuff, I believe. But, we would often introduce to the client, by way of the classical pre-talk, that here's what hypnosis is not, that you're not going to be asleep, there's not going to be the loss of control. But let me frame it this way, that what are some of those pre-talk statements we should be making to each other within this profession of how we actually define what we're doing?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is I don't even mention hypnosis in my sessions anyway. I just give them the result of it. But originally James Braid was, called it hypnosis, a sleep-like state, and then very rapidly realised it had nothing to do with sleep and wasn't the state. So he tried to change it to monoideism. which didn't kind of stick. Hypnosis had taken on a life of its own. And I heard a fantastic definition of, or a new term for hypnosis from Professor Zoltan Deans at the UK Hypnosis Convention last Saturday. And he says, what we actually should be calling it is we create phenomenological control. So we create phenomena and we control it. It's phenomenological. I'm still rehearsing saying that word. Phenomenological control, because we create phenomena. If we don't create phenomena, how do we know we've got hypnosis?
Yeah.
So all we need to do is concentrate on creating the phenomena. He presented all the study and research, and rapidly my geek was on. My software was firing up for my referencing. I was firing away for my university access and calling up all the papers he was referencing and seeing where they were going, and I've continued to do so, showing quite clearly that we don't need an induction. An induction isn't necessary. 2 years ago at the UK Hypnosis Convention, I ran around creating hypnotic phenomena in the room. So I didn't have a single induction. I ran around and I was crushing people's necks like Darth Vader, sticking people to things, making people invisible, taking names away, using the force to make people collapse. None of it with an induction. I put that with the video on a US stage hypnosis Facebook page. And the amount of people who said, yeah, but what inductions did you use before you did all that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't. I just went straight to phenomena. And they couldn't get their mind around that. All I'd actually done was just go straight to result. So what we need to do, as presented again by Saturday at the UK Hypnosis Convention, was brilliant. I was privileged to fire off on the academic day as like a soft launch for it. But we had people like Dr. Ben Paris, Dr. Michael Heap, Dr. Devin Terhune, Professor Zoltan Deans, absolute scholars in the world of hypnosis, presenting what the research currently says. So what it says is we don't need an induction. We need to concentrate on suggestion and the responsiveness of our subject. Because after all we need them to do is set up a conditioned response. That conditioned response needs to be effortless, with a sense of non-volition, experience as being involuntary. It just happened, that kind of effect.
Yeah.
So my working definition of hypnosis, I believe, hits every single case, where hypnosis is where your imagination is guided so much that it becomes your new reality with a sense of non-volition. And that generally covers it. It's my working definition. It covers for self-hypnosis. It covers for people like me who go straight to phenomena. It goes for those who want the arduous and boring process of doing an induction, which do have their places in times. You can increase placebo, remove nocebo, teach other skills at that point in time. For example, progressive relaxation. I know Kelly Woods, awesome Kelly Woods. I learned so much from her about working with kids. And about smiling. She's lovely. Yeah, I love Kelly to death. She's one of our industry's top people in my mind, and in every respect. But I know that she uses autogenic training as part of the relaxation that she'll do if she's using an induction. And she uses it right. Some people don't know how to relax. So why not create hypnosis with an induction at the same time as teaching them a skill? So it's quite clever. So inductions do have their place, but much of what we know.
The conflict is the older thinking that, now that I've done my induction, now that I've done several deepeners, now I can finally address while you're here. Yeah. That to embrace that every aspect of the process is the hypnosis, and as long as it's satisfying a specific point toward that outcome. Now, I'd share that, even looking at some of the definitions over the years, that while we may be in a community that's moving away from the language of conscious and unconscious, to even look at the Dave Ellman definition of bypassing the critical faculty of the conscious mind, that was something that, I had just repeated because that was what was in my trainings. And as much as, Cheryl and Larry are good friends, though, here's the moment where I had volunteered. I went to see a stage hypnosis show that a friend was doing, and it was not promoted well. So there was like a dozen of us in the audience, and he does the call for volunteers, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going up. and I went up. Yeah. And I'm not difficult to hypnotize. So I'm up there, and something clicked. And this is like, to date the story, I think this is like 2006, 2007 or so. And my experience was, and clearly as a very auditory person, having put out 240 or so audio only podcasts, and insisting we turn the video feed off before we hit record, because let's have the conversation the way that people are going to listen to it. I was then hearing the suggestion, and then I was doing the suggestion, and then I was hearing it.
Yeah.
So back to that automatic reaction. That's what my perception of that definition. That's what I read out of that older terminology, that we're retraining that new automatic response. That, the same as I'm about to brush my teeth in the morning, and that's what I'm reaching for automatically because that's where I know where it is. We're about to jump into this conversation, and we had to switch recording platforms for a moment. And the automatic function was there of just going, okay, let's just run this system. The same as here's the guy who was in the office the other day, and we want that new automatic reaction to be living without the cigarettes. The person, that new automatic reaction is it's time to sit down and write the grad school entry letters, that she can just do that with ease rather than the old story that was holding her back. Yeah. So it's whether it's redefining the terms, to look at the word trance, which my perception of that just simply becomes where the internal imagination story is now more dominant than the external reality. And we want to catch them up to what's actually there. So I think at the core of it, we're using the same definitions. Mine is perhaps trying to excuse the older words that are still around there.
Yeah, the older words come with some kind of, they come with baggage though.
Yeah.
And they overcomplicate matters. It's a lot more simple, just say you've got a mind. You've got reality all around you, but how we move through it, how we experience it, is our imagined version of it. Let's imagine it differently. Job done. That way you bypass the critical faculty, which even Dave Ellman admitted was just a metaphor. You've ignored the fact that there's no such thing as a subconscious or unconscious mind. There is just one mind, the resultant of a functioning neurology. All mentation, all thought is biological in nature. The consciousness, if we put focus and awareness on our experience, we create a rationalization, a commentary on what we've already involuntarily decided to do anyway. Why not just cut straight to the chase? I think that in my sessions, for example, cutting out all of the old models of hypnosis and only doing what's necessary has freed up my time to actually increase the change work. I think it was James Tripp once that said the components for a session: do the work. There are 5 things on the session. 1, do the work. 2, test. 3, test. 4, test. And 5, test and more. Yeah, so we reinforce it. Hebb's law, neurons that fire together wire together. We fire it, allow it to wire. Fire it again, now it wires stronger. Fire it again, it wires even stronger. And by cutting out the stuff that's not necessary, we get more time to do what we need to do. So when I see people using subconscious, we're talking to subconscious, I think, okay, what subconscious is that? Because that doesn't actually exist. That's just a construct, an unuseful metaphor. If you're hearing a word, it's already been processed by your, by the time it hits your consciousness, it's already been decided upon, already been acted upon, and now you're doing a conscious commentary on it. So there's no duality of mind. There's just one mind.
Right. Well, I go back to something silly that popped up this morning in one of the private communities that I run, where someone was running into a conflict around how they deliver a pre-talk and getting into a full discussion of stage hypnosis, to which I responded. I'm like, I just have to respond from the reality that I did a couple of thousand stage hypnosis programs before I kind of pulled myself out of that world and transitioned to full-time hypnotherapy. And I never bring that up with my clients. And what I mean by never bringing it up is I'm not explaining how this is different from stage hypnosis, because more importantly, if you've never had that experience, why do I need to stop and explain something that's not going to be a part of what we're about to do? You know, back to the magic world, the catchphrase sometimes is don't run when you're not being chased. If you hold up the pack of cards and you say, see here, an ordinary pack of cards where every card is different, this raises that red flag where someone's going, why is he showing that? So I love that point of get directly to the point. And you mentioned starting with the phenomenon. Can you kind of map through what that might look like?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a client sitting in front of me. I always start with a session with, so what we're here for today, because I find that their mind's already primed, the good old priming that we know so well as mentalists. Mm-hmm. The mind's already primed with what they're here for. So I don't need to do a detailed personal history because it's already running in the mind. I study the structure They've got the understanding of the problem, what it means to them. We put their understanding to the structure, and that's how I work. And I use the therapeutic relationship to guide the way that we work. But with the hypnosis, for example, I won't do a pre-talk in any way, shape or form. Well, I will with about 2 words or a single word. And then we go straight to creating phenomena. So my entire pre-talk used to be, I used to nick this from James Trance because I quite like that. James Trance, he's Marmite, you either love him or hate him. I used to hate him. We had a big old spat, realised we had a lot of common ground, and we're actually just doing what we do, and now we seem to love each other. I love Marmite. You may not know in the American market, Marmite is Americans. Yeah. You ever come across some Marmite, try it. You make us English laugh because you won't like it. But yeah, James, so Justin Trance, he just says, experience this.
Yeah.
And then gives the suggestion. James Brown on Saturday has shortened my whole pre-talk from 2 words to, well, sometimes 1, notice.
Right.
It's like amazing because you're directing the attention with both of those to what you need to do. So say, for example, there we go, notice this or experience this. Push your hands at the table. Lock your mind around this idea. The harder you try and lift it, the more it sticks down. Try and lift your hand. Notice what happens. 9 times out of 10, it sticks. If not, I now know how to work with them. And I'll just stick their hands using a different method. Just maybe eye fixation so their minds can't wander. Maybe that's all that's required. Maybe I need to embed it a little bit more. Maybe I need to refine that work. I just need to make sure that I'm getting my client to imagine what they need to imagine to create the effect. Does that kind of make sense?
That does. And, especially the power of notice this, or there was a conversation I was having with a student the other day about someone who suddenly, the phrase was, they had an odd look on their face and I don't know if what I was doing was working for them. And as the dialogue just simply turned into, it's like, well, you can comment on it. The process becomes interactive at that point to go. And as you're aware of that changing expression on your face, what are you noticing now? And whatever they feed you is now part of the process. And I wrote this down as you said that, based on that interaction, quote, I know how to work with them.
Yeah. You get it.
That it's that symbiotic relationship of moving towards that common outcome. And based on how they respond to any part of the instruction or any part of the phenomenon, that's informing you how to best work with them. That here's a local, she had gone through hypnosis training and then came in for a session the other day, which her comment was, you never did an induction, to which was, try to bring back that anxiety. What do you notice now? She goes, but you never did an induction. I go, I know. Try to bring back the anxiety. Where is it? I can't find it. It's like, do we need one?
Exactly. Someone said to me online that you need to, clients come, they expect an induction. I'm thinking, mine don't. The only one that's done that the only one that I could ever remember doing it was actually a few weeks ago. And he said, I thought you were going to use hypnosis. Where's the induction? And I said, well, hold on a second. What results have you got? What happens now when you think about this? Well, it's all changed. Exactly. Now, you don't go to a garage, a car garage, to get your car fixed and tell the mechanic how to do their job, do you? Well, no. So I'm the hypnosis expert. You can see that you've had to change. Well, yeah, you can experience it, can't you? Yeah, in fact, try and get it back. I can't. There you go. I did the mechanic's work without you telling me how to do it. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, it does. It's the power of when you set the frame, you get to control the frame. I'm at the dentist Tuesday morning this week, and, they did something out of order than every dentist appointment I've ever been to. And I've been to this dentist several times. But just the schedule was kind of off, and typically, the hygienist does most of the work, and then the dentist comes in and stares in your mouth and goes, are you flossing? When they know they don't have to ask. And, then that's the wrap up. And this time they go, the dentist walked in first. He goes, hey, the schedule's a little crazy today. You have an easy dental history. Let me go ahead and do the checkup now. And he did that first rather than last. And it made perfect sense because I'm the one who one procedure years ago and then that's it, not even a cavity. So when we can set that framework. So I think I'd edit that phrase because I think I saw that conversation too, that from the client perspective, they're expecting some level of, let's say, hypnotic phenomenon. So it's not the induction from their point of view, the entire thing is hypnosis. So by kicking off with that phenomenon, by having some magical moment, even though we're completely there debunking it and going, it's not magic, it's magical, however, that's that result. But from their point of view, it's the same as you're doing a 10-to-1 deepener and you forgot to say 4. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I like. I've just learned from a very, very quiet, very sort of, he's probably very well known in the mentalist world, a guy called Aaron Alexander, and I'm learning one of his effects at the moment because I'm thinking I can use this quite nice in therapy. I can use it in my workshops and presentations and public speaking and such like. And it's all about making a connection. And that resonated with me because someone else had said something recently as well, that when you're working with a client, you wander and you wander. You wander with an A and you wander with an O, and you explore together. And I thought that's a brilliant frame to hold in mind when you want that therapeutic relationship when you're working with a client. Work with your client with a sense of wonder and wonder. Look to explore together. And I really like that.
Yeah. So is there a specific, let's say, category of work that you tend to find yourself seeing most of?
I tend to get the difficult cases. People seem to come to me when they've tried other things that haven't worked. I get a lot of trauma. I get a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. I get a lot of things like anorexia, bulimia. I get depression. I've had suicidal depressives come to see me, even dropped off from our local sort of health and safety team, our crisis team. So I tend to do what many people would term complicated clients. And I like clients who make me think and throw a curveball because I've got to find the structure behind how they're creating what they're doing and then help them to imagine it and embed it far differently. So I've got a diverse range of clients, but normally tricky ones. But because of my sporting background, I'll always have an underlying flow of clients who want sports performance.
Mm-hmm. That tends to be a category that I think may be misunderstood. If you're working with that type of sport, what are some of those points that you think people need to be aware of?
First thing with any sports performance client, or sports performance or the scary clients.
I'd say sports performance.
Sports performance. In sports performance, the first thing we need to do is tidy up the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit that everyone in sports psychology tends to forget. And so as an athlete, as a sportsman, the successful one, I know that sports performance is 100% about the mind. Mm-hmm. In other words, it starts with the mind. Sure, we've got to do the training, we've got to learn the skills and such like, but if your mind's not in the right place, you won't even get to train in the first place. If your mind's not in the right place, it won't be best placed to develop those skills. So the first thing I do with any sports performance client is to tidy up the rest of their lives. And that makes sports performance so easy then. And then from there, it's all about a classic state of flow, easily, effortlessly, non-consciously, doing the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right effect. Or in fighting, we'd call that mindless violence. So we're working automatically. Interactive sports performance, say fighting, football, even down to things like tennis, is all about pattern recognition and the correct selection of response. So a lot of my work is on recognizing the moves of the other person and then helping my client find the correct response. So there's some of the easy ones. Also, obviously, we've got things like the emotional states, anxiety, and any negative state is the worst state ever for sports performance because it's adding tension to the body and focus and attention going onto the threat. So the client ends up driving their car with the handbrake on, making a lot of noise, not going that far, burning a lot of fuel, and bits will start falling off. It's not efficient. So, for example, if someone's got anxiety, a negative performance state, I'll flip it around to excitement, which is a positive performance state. So, yeah, lots of work necessary with sports clients. And the first part of it is never actually about the sport. It's about facilitating the ability to have the best ability to train because success is based on training.
Well, I mean, that kind of correlates to basically everything else. That I see a ton of entrepreneurs for public speaking issues, which it's so little about the public speaking. It's, the way you are here is the way you are everywhere else. And we're working on an entire system of that individual that if we spend our time, we can get the foot in the door. This is where, like, for weight loss, I do find good results by kicking off with habits and behaviors, because that we can get in motion pretty quickly. But the real sticking power is by addressing everything else around that.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about creating the maximum effect in the shortest space of time that lasts, and educating the client how to do it. So again, like in all my sessions, I train my clients in what we're doing as we're doing it, so they don't need me. And on the weight loss side, I always just open up with something I learned from Ray Cronice, a mutual friend with Penn Jillette, which is everything that goes in your mouth will either add or take away from your health span.
Nice.
Health span being good health and longevity, by the way.
Which, with the nickname Smiler, I have to give you my version of that, which is that my goal is to look at you at the end of this process and smile at you and say, professionally speaking, hope to never see you again.
Yeah.
Let that be a good thing.
I'd love to see you socially, but, with respect, I want you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and not need me. So
exactly.
In professional capacity, I never want to need to see you again, ever again. So yeah, I'm on the same page with that. That's cool.
Awesome. I know you've got an appointment coming up here in a few moments. Where can people track you down online?
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook, so Gary Turner. I've got my Huskies, picture of me and my girlfriend's profile picture, and my Huskies as my banner, running through the snow as they do so well. So you can find me on Facebook. I do have a therapy website, which is garyturnerperformance.com, where I run training courses for people. There's a nice course on anxiety up there, working effectively with fear-based disorders. I've got the therapy protocol up there as well. Now, the therapy protocol is where I've broken down every element of therapy, so you know exactly what you're doing easily and elegantly to get things right. It fits inside any modality as well, so that's worth a look at. I've got a weight loss one coming out, no surprise, just in time for the new year client,
nice.
Which would be for the general public. So anxiety one and the therapy one designed for therapists. The weight loss one is designed for sorry, I haven't got the anxiety one up yet. Sorry, it's the anger one that's up. So I've got anger. I've got the therapy protocol, both designed for therapists to work with people. And then the weight loss come is just for general clients. And then my personal website really does need a lot of updating. It's currently being looked at to be updated. It's garyturner.co.uk.
Yeah, and we'll put links to those over in the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com. And a bit of a plug, I've actually got the therapy protocol, and I found it to be outstanding and really enjoyed that material.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we wrap it up, any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
Yeah, definitely. Can't remember where I picked this up from, but it's a lovely little saying. We can all always be better. It's just a nice statement that makes us remember that we can all always be better. So we can start thinking, what are we not paying attention to? What can we do to be better? And I actually start each and every one of my workshops with, I want you to come at this from the basis, from the perspective, I want you to come at this from a cognitive bias that everything I'm about to tell you is wrong. And what I want you to do is question everything and prove me wrong with appropriate evidence. That way, if I have made a mistake, I can then correct it for future workshops. If I haven't, at least then you've embedded the information even more deeply. So in other words, everything I've said today to you listeners, try and question everything I've said and prove me wrong with appropriate evidence, of course, because we can all always be better.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, leaving your reviews online, and sharing this as a conversational resource within our community. Once again, check out the show notes with this episode to get all the details about how to get in contact with Gary Turner, to check out his therapy protocol, and again, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. There's no need to have to reinvent the wheel when automating your own hypnotic business systems. So get mine over at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey, it's Jason here, and reading is lame and videos are awesome. So do this right now. Go ahead and click subscribe right here inside of this video, and that will link you to my YouTube channel, and you will be the first to find out as new information is shared here online. Click subscribe now. Stay in touch. I look forward to hearing of your success very soon.